to Miraculous Thinking. I'm your host, Elenique Marie. And with me today is my beautiful co-host, Crystal Ann Compton. And today we're going to be talking about Chapter 2 of Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. And the chapter is about, Crystal, what is the title of this chapter?
Sleep.
Sleep.
Go to sleep.
So welcome back. And we're just so happy to have you here with us today. And before we begin, Crystal's going to do a little housekeeping.
Yeah, just a couple of things that we would like you to keep in mind as we continue to create content and grow our community. Like, we just have a vision. Elenique and I have a vision for what we want to continue to create. And so we want to stay connected with you. One of the ways that we can do that is to have you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Miraculous Thinking Podcast has a YouTube channel. Now, some of you might be actually watching on this YouTube, watching this on YouTube, so you already know that. But if you're listening via podcast, then you might not know that we are on YouTube. And if you want to see us have this conversation and also leave comments or commentary, we just invite you to find us on YouTube. Link is in the description. We would love if you would subscribe and like and just help us to grow over there, as well as on the podcast platform that you're listening to us from. Like, if you can leave us a good review, that is so helpful. We would truly appreciate it. We also wanted to make sure that you knew that you could also reach out to us directly by emailing us. All you have to do is send an email to miraculousthinking@gmail.com. Miraculous Thinking is one word at gmail.com. You can write us. Tell us what's on your mind. If you have questions or comments about what we are doing, or if you have some suggestions, like, we don't know all the books.
No.
I mean, shockingly, I have a lot of books, but I don't know all of them. And I love getting recommendations for juicy spiritual books. So if you want to write us, please use that Gmail account. And last but not least, we just wanted to just switch it up a little bit with the meditations. Last week in our episode of Chapter 1, Feeling is a Secret, we had a meditation embedded right there in the episode, which was nice. And I think people really loved it. But I think it would be more organized and easier to access if we separated the meditation from the actual conversation. So starting this week, every time we upload an episode, we are going to, at the same time, upload a meditation if one is available. Because Elenique, I'm not sure if you're going to want to do that every single week, but
we'll give it a go.
We'll see. If she's doing a meditation, then we're going to upload that as a separate video or a separate audio file, but you should be able to access it at the same time. And that'll just make it easier for you if you're looking for one of her meditations on sleep or one of the meditations on divine self-concept, then you'll know how to do it. It's much easier for everybody involved. I think that's it. I think those are the only things that we really had to go over. But before we talk about today's chapter, which again is sleep, why don't you, Elenique, take us through maybe a bit of a review of Chapter 1 of Feeling is a Secret, which we covered last week. And if you haven't watched it, well, you better go watch it. Or if you haven't listened to it, you better go listen to it. That chapter is entitled The Law and Its Operation. And maybe you can just take us down that review.
Well, in general, in the most simplest terms and the most convenient definitions.
Yes, please.
It's just essentially that everything that is in the world outside of you begins with the thoughts that happen within you. You are watching outside of you that which you believe yourself to be, your belief systems, essentially externalized. And how that happens is that the subconscious, you have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. And the conscious mind is the one that comes up with the ideas of what you believe, what you want, what you expect. And then when you go to sleep or when you pray, or when you think upon something often, you're basically planting those beliefs and those seeds into your subconscious. And the subconscious does not judge the quality of those ideas. It simply meets whatever you say is true. It's like, okay, if that's what you want to go with, then that's the truth. So that is why it's so important to recognize the types of things that are growing in there in the subconscious, the kinds of things that we've been conditioned to believe through our life experiences, through our family, through our society, through our religious background. And when we notice something in our life that isn't working, that isn't bringing us joy, that's a good sign that that's a limiting belief that you're running back there in that subconscious. So we want to go in there and we want to change it. And how we do it is by our feelings. Our feelings are the antenna. They are the pulse that's being put out into that subconscious that's saying what we want. So the more you think upon something, the more you feel it, whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. You're telling subconscious, give me more. Give me more of that. So that's sort of a brief summary from my perspective of what chapter 1 is about.
Yes, absolutely. So to simplify, there's the conscious, which is the masculine. It is the thinking aspect. It's the part of us that comes up with the affirmation and the idea of what we want to create. And then there's the subconscious, that is the faithful lover and or servant of the conscious, who diligently outpictures or creates that which the conscious envisions, but can only do so, can only create if you have the feeling of it. So if you can think it all you want, right?
That's right.
You can have great ideas every day, but if you don't have the accompanying feeling of already being that, I am already that, I already have this. If you can't embody that in a feeling way, then the subconscious never receives the message or the idea. The subconscious only ever creates based on who you feel yourself to be, which is why we started there, because it's very important that if we don't have the right concept of self, and self as the miraculous creator, and if we don't have the concept of self as the success or as the prosperous or the healthy person that we want to be, if we don't feelingly have that, then the subconscious can't create that. So understanding just the fundamental mechanisms of how this works, this is kind of how Neville has set us up in the manifestation process. And then, of course, led to chapter 2. And he did say at the end of chapter 1, like, if you can't do it all though, like if in your waking hours, you can't be so hyper vigilant and watching your thoughts and making sure, checking in that your feelings are aligned and being intentional about what you are impressing upon the subconscious, which is work. That's work to get to a state where you're running that machine in an excellent way. And I don't know if anybody ever really accomplishes that in a sustained way. Maybe they do. But for those of us who can't do it 24/7, there is another way to do it, and that is to use the doorway or the portal of sleep. And that leads us to chapter 2. So I thought I would start us off here with, we're just going to give a summary of chapter 2. Again, it's about sleep, but it's more than that. And I'm just going to read the first opening paragraph and then the final paragraph, because this kind of, to me, says everything about what Neville is going to teach us. Of course, we're going to drill down and get into concepts, but this is what it's about. Quote, sleep, the life that occupies 1/3 of our stay on Earth, is the natural door into the subconscious. So it is with sleep that we are now concerned. The conscious 2/3 of our life on Earth is measured by the degree of attention that we give to sleep. Our understanding of and delight in what sleep has to bestow will cause us, night after night, to set out for it as though we were keeping an appointment with a lover. In other words, if we knew how powerful that doorway into sleep was, we would consider it like a rendezvous with our lover, the lover who gives us everything that we need and want. We love this lover so much. That's the subconscious, and that's how powerful sleep is in terms of a portal into the subconscious. And the last paragraph of this chapter is, sleep is the door into heaven. What you take in as a feeling, you bring out as a condition. Oh my God. Oh, get me hopping. What you take in as a feeling, you bring out as a condition, an action, or an object in space. Like it turns into something real, y'all. So sleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. And he ends it by saying, as in consciousness, so on Earth. So that's going to set us up for our big conversation. So what do you think about all of that? And what are your observations about the power of sleep? Because, of course, you are a hypnotherapist as well as all kinds of other great things, but I'm sure you have your own perspective on this.
Well, I think sleep is, I mean, it's sad how little, how few of us understand the power of sleep. If you want to look at it in a very simplistic way, even just biologically, just for the regeneration of the body, just for the health of the body, forget about manifesting, just for general health and stress reduction, you need to sleep for your body to clean the cells, for your brain to dump what it needs to dump. So you mentioned that a little bit earlier about how people think that, when you dream, it's only a brain dump, but it is that, and it's important. It's like taking out the trash. But I did want to talk to everyone today as we're getting into this concept of the brain, and there's a lot of confusion about what is hypnosis and what is sleep and where are we creating. And so I wanted to talk about the fact that we as human beings have five brain wave states, five primary brainwave states. And the first one of these is called the gamma state. And some of our listeners might be in that state right now. And that is a hyper aware state when you're trying to really learn something and you're really focused in and you're doing your best to grasp. And this state can also be present when you're having hyperactivity. People that struggle with hyperactivity, it can also be that. So it's like you're running on all cylinders. And you can't sustain it for that long because it's exhausting, right? So but that's the most focused in active state. Then we've got our beta state. And that's the state that we are in when we're in the world, working, doing things, problem solving, deciding, oh, I'm going to take this highway. No, there's traffic. How am I going to set up the schedule for today? That's the state that a lot of us are in often um, as we work in the world. Then you've got your alpha state, and that's the state that we work in hypnotherapy. It's also the state that you bring upon yourself when you do things like go for a walk in the woods, sit and look at the ocean, even just be with your partner when you're just in that really great place where you start to feel this relaxation, this relax, this openness, where things start to just diffuse. You just start to feel like everything's okay with the world. And in the deeper parts of alpha is where we go in as hypnotherapists and really start doing that change work. Because what we've done is we've asked the subconscious to open to us. And that critical mind that's blocking us from doing that, we've asked that mind to just step aside and relax. And then you have the theta brain wave state, which comes even after that. And that's the state of deep meditation, deep meditation, when words sort of disappear and everything starts to become just more like a vision or a sensing or a knowing. And that is really one of the most beautiful and powerful places to be, because that's where you can really drop. Some of hypnosis happens in theta, but it can also happen in alpha. And our last state is the one that the yogis live in, the Tibetan monks, and that's delta. And to the rest of us, it's called sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But to them, it's their state. It's a state of complete connection with the oneness that is, with the subconscious. You're in there. You're like in the vault. You've entered the vault. And now whatever you want to experience, be, sense, or feel, it's just a matter of dropping the seed into that. All those incredible ideas and synergies and things that you know without knowing how you know. Like when you wake up in a dream and you suddenly just have this feeling or knowing that you're meant to do something. This is where Neville says the magic is happening. It's where God talks to us, gives us instructions. And I'm sure you're going to talk to us about that quote. But that's essentially the difference between the states. And so when we want to manifest, it's important that we approach this from all five of these levels. And that is really the discipline that you talked about, right? Those first three were awake. The first four essentially, but a lot of people don't meditate, right? But the first three, we are in. So what do we do? How do we bring consciousness to those states so that we can be co-creating awake and asleep, so that wakefulness becomes as powerful as sleep or meditation in the creation of what we want to realize. So
So you're saying that monks and maybe Jesus Christ and Buddha were walking around the planet in Delta, the state
yes,
we would be totally asleep in, but they're awake. They're both conscious and subconscious totally, and animating, creating all the time, like intentionally and consciously in this deep, profound brain state. That's wild to me. I never knew that. I never thought of it that way. I mean, if I had to guess, I would say they were in gamma, because
right,
that's a state of like the zone, so
right.
connected and everything. But what you're saying is it's delta. That's so interesting to me, Elenique.
And they've shown it, right? So the
Mhm.
delta state is the California, so many California, Berkeley, the University of California, Berkeley did all these incredible studies on Tibetan monks, and and they've put them in the machinery. So this is not just us being like, I think they're in theta. No, like they can show in imaging and CAT scans, and they can show the state, how fast the hertz are, because when you're in theta, you're in 1 to 3 hertz, and they can measure it. So they are in theta, but
Are
they're
they in
awake.
theta or delta?
I'm sorry,
Theta?
delta. They're
Delta.
in
That's okay.
delta.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's
They're
okay.
delta. They're in delta, but they're not asleep.
They're awake in the dream of
They're
life.
awake in the dream.
Wow,
How
that's
crazy is that?
wild to me. That is so cool. And
It's
when you think of
awesome.
the implications of that, though, like when you think about how manifestation actually works and being in the third dimension where the human body is, there's a time gap. Like we order, then wait. We've got to wait, though, a little bit, right? But if you're actually in Delta, if you're actually awake in the dream and totally animating from the subconscious, I imagine that the manifestations, the miracles of Jesus, for example, the loaves and the fishes and the miraculous healings are happening instantaneously, because Jesus in that moment is, yes, in 3D, but he's in delta, or he's in the brain state and the energetic state of the subconscious in the act of creating. And it's possible for all of us.
Absolutely.
Well,
I
he
mean,
said it was. Mhm.
that's right. That's exactly what it is. And that's the power, that if you can remember, what you actually are by experiencing yourself as you truly are, then you'll know everything will become accessible to you. Everything opens. And like you said, there is no time or space for miracles. Of course, the miracle says there's no difference, there's no degree of difficulty to miracles. It's only the human being that thinks, well, $1 million is harder than $100. Well, the only thinking makes it so.
Right. Mm.
What's the difference? It's abundance. You're telling me the infinite everythingness that is knows the difference between 1 million and 100? That comes from an idea of lack.
Right. And the filter of your experience.
Exactly.
Okay. So good to know. Good to know.
Noted.
Well, and before we get into some of the aspects or some of the quotes that we want to dive into, let's talk about the hypnagogic state, because I've taught about it without really having an academic sense of what it is. All I know it to be is that juicy kind of tranced out, drowsy state where I'm not quite asleep yet, but I'm not fully awake either. And that happens if I'm conscious to it, which as an intuitive person, I try to be conscious in that, because that's such a psychic space to be. But I'm not conscious to it. But while I'm in that state, I'm drowsy, but I can still think. I can still have an
Yes.
idea. And while I am drowsy, I can still have a feeling. Now, I can't have too passionate a feeling. Like if I want $1 million and I'm in hypnagogia right before I go to sleep, and if I start getting super excited about $1 million and all the things I'm going to do with it, I'm going to pop out of the trance. I'm going to pop out of the drowsy. I'm going to wake myself up and I'm going to start taking notes and stuff. So it's like this weird and lovely balance between sleep and wakefulness, where you can also be creative. And I imagine with a hypnotherapist such as you are, that would be easier, because you've got, an expert who's guiding you through an experience. But it's probably a different thing when it's just you and you're about to fall asleep and you're trying to prime the subconscious before you fall asleep. So can you talk a little bit about hypnagogia and how to work in that?
Yes, there's so much misconceptions of hypnosis. Hypnosis is a trance. It's a trance-like state. And if I were to compare it to something, it would be daydreaming. You're in this happy place in your daydream when you're still there. So like if something happens around you, you can respond. You still have your free will. You still have control over yourself. Yet you've allowed yourself to drift into the imagination. You're drifting and you're imagining, and you can have positive daydreams and negative daydreams. We I feel like most of us are in a constant daydream
Hmm.
because we're not really seeing what's there. We're seeing what we have been programmed to see, right? But hypnosis is what typifies hypnosis is that it is a case when you're in hypnosis, you have extreme suggestibility. So you're very suggestible to suggestion. And that's what's so powerful because you're open to suggestion, because we've relaxed the body, we've relaxed the mind, we've created a safe container for you to have this daydream. And now we're taking the daydream, and instead of letting the mind just wander and create chaos, which sometimes we do, you with the hypnotherapist create goals. And so it's my job as I'm leading someone through that to either heal whatever needs to be healed or create the new habit that needs to be created in order to support whatever the goal might be. So we're actively shaping that dream together. And the thing about it is, I can't do it alone because I don't have control over the person. I never do. It seems like it does because you're very suggestible and very relaxed. But if somebody told you cluck like a chicken and you don't want to cluck like a chicken, you will not do it. You're totally in
Good.
control,
Right.
right? So the hypnagogic state is just a state where the critical mind is calmed and kind of to the side. You're in communication with the subconscious, which is essentially imagination. To me, another word for the subconscious is imagination.
Mm.
So now we have an open door to imagination. I can create or help you co-create an experience of peace if you find it hard to be peaceful. We can guide you into a place of peace. Not everybody can,
Hmm.
of positivity, of hopefulness. Depending on your background, it might be hard to even remember. Maybe you've never even known what that feeling feels like. So we try to create that experience so that we can bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. So for me, that is essentially the difference between hypnosis or what a hypnagogic state
Hmm.
actually is. I don't know if that.
Yeah, but if we didn't have a hypnotherapist, we still are able to work in that state ourselves. I mean, it probably can't be too complicated because we're directing it ourselves, but like Neville Goddard has a very simple way to prime yourself before sleep, which we'll get into. But it's possible. Like, and that's kind of the goal, is to work with that state that we all enter into and out of like twice a day, right before we fall asleep, and
Mm-hmm.
also right after when we're starting to rouse and wake up during the day. So the goal is to be intentional and creative in those states.
Absolutely. And it is most open when you're falling asleep or waking up because you're already in that, drowsy, sleepy state. But I mean, think about even relationships as a good example. Haven't you talked yourself into falling in love with people that later you don't have a clue what the heck it was that you saw?
Yes, I
You're
have.
like, what the hell did I ever see in that guy?
Indeed.
That's called a hypnotic trance. It's just unfortunately sometimes it lasts 7 to 10 years for you to
Right,
wake up
right.
from the experience. But it's a talking to yourself. It's a focusing on the positives, let's say, on the
Hmm.
perceived positives and ignoring. So whatever it is you want to achieve, we just want you to think about those things in the positive, not in the lack, but in the having. So today, if you would like to be abundant, focus on the abundance that's already there for you. Even if it's just a pack of gum in your wallet and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I have this gum right now because my mouth was dry and I'm enjoying this tasty, delicious piece of gum. Just reaffirm
Hmm.
to yourself, and then that will be what you attract. So you can do it all day long with anything and everyone and everything.
He that hath, more will be given. So, what do you have? And be grateful for what you have. And that's how you get more. But he who hath not, if you aren't grateful, if you're not noticing, if you're not in the awareness of the abundance that's already existing in your life, then more will be taken away. So, that kind of goes
Absolutely.
back to what Neville said in the last chapter. Um, why don't we start getting into some of these passages from Feeling is a Secret
Sounds
that
great.
really stood out? I mean, I almost want to just
You
read the whole
highlighted the book.
thing.
You
I'm like,
highlighted
I
the whole
gotta calm down.
chapter.
Gotta calm down a little bit. Um, I can start us off with a
Yes.
few, and then we'll kick it over to you because I don't want to dominate the whole conversation. But I just get so excited reading this book. The first quote that I have is actually Neville quoting the Bible, which he loves to do. He comes from a Christian paradigm. And of course, we are not espousing Orthodox Christianity. It's just the language in which he speaks. And so he does quote scripture from time to time. He says, quote, "In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumbering upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instruction," which is an interesting scripture when you're talking about it in the framework of feeling is the secret. So this is actually a reference to God of the Old Testament. In a dream, in the vision of the night, when you are falling asleep, when you are asleep, that's when God comes in and opens your ears and seals your instruction. I think another way we can say seals your instruction is sets up your day for tomorrow, sets up the things that are going to be happening in your life and the way that you're going to interact with those objects in space that you have created. But that all happens while you are asleep. Like everything is set into motion, therefore. All the things that you've thought about, all the things that you've felt, especially that which you've intentionally felt while you are asleep, your ears are open and you're given the instructions, and boom, you're going to wake up and that is what you are going to experience. Is that how you feel and interpret that scripture that Neville references?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Completely the same.
Okay. The next quote, "The subconscious," Neville says, "unlike a woman of the world who marries her husband to change him, has no desire to change the conscious or the waking state, but loves it as it is and faithfully reproduces its likeness in the outer world of form," taking us back to the reality that the subconscious is not a respecter of persons, meaning the subconscious is never going to say to Crystal Ann Compton, "Hey, you might want to rethink how you're feeling about that because your feeling is going to force me to create it." The subconscious doesn't do this. The subconscious is just in a perpetual state of, yes, I love you, yes. And based on how you feel, I will create it. So this is just, and Neville, he comes from a different time. So a lot of the righteous principles he espouses are in the masculine, and some of the ones that are a little weaker are in the feminine. Because, it's not just women who want to change men. There are a lot of men out there who want to change women, right?
Yes.
But the subconscious isn't trying to change us at all. The subconscious is just agreeing with us all the time, which is a beautiful idea.
Absolutely.
Unless, of course, what you're agreeing upon is bad for you,
Well,
right?
it's your number one fan. It's kind of like when the nature of the relationship. It's when they say when people have bad habits, addictions, they call them enablers,
Yes.
right? So the subconscious can
Right.
be either your enabler or your number one fan, depending on what you're putting it to do,
Right. Yes.
essentially.
Yes. All right, the next one. "The conditions and events of your life are your children, formed from the molds of your subconscious impressions in sleep. They are made in the image and likeness of your innermost feeling, that they may reveal you to yourself." So in Genesis chapter 1, "And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea," and so forth. "And then God created Adam in his image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them." And it's this idea of how the process of creation works. And it's this returning to the idea of the subconscious as the wife, the beloved wife who loves her husband and rises to the desire of the husband. And in this analogy, the husband is the thinking aspect of who we are. It's the conscious. She rises to the desire of her husband and then sets about to create the children of that desire. She animates it. She creates the object in space through her love for the husband, which I think is just a beautiful way. It's a beautiful metaphor to look at the act of creation. It's what Christ or Jesus or God did with us as well. Next, sleep is the time when the male, or the conscious mind, turns from the world of sense to seek its lover or its subconscious self. I'd like to take a moment to define the term world of sense. Neville Goddard again says sleep is the time when the male, or the conscious mind, turns from the world of sense. What that is referring to specifically is the outpictured reality. What we sense with our five senses every day, all day. Like we see things, we touch things, we feel things in our natural world. But when we sleep, we turn away from that. We're no longer in the domain of the third dimension. We're going somewhere else, baby. Okay? We're going into the astral. We are tripping the light fantastic. And that is us not intentionally necessarily turning away from the world of sense, but it is a way that we do that. But Neville also wants us to teach in our waking state, in our conscious state, to turn away from what the world is showing you. The world is showing you based on your paycheck. The world is showing you based on your lack of a love relationship. All of these different things about yourself. It's up to you to turn away from that if you want to create something different. You can't believe it and be plugged into it and create something different. You have to pivot away. You've got to turn towards that which you want to be. And so away from the world of sense.
Absolutely. And that's the hardest thing, isn't it? It's that we look at this external reality, and because it's what's showing up outside, we believe that it's true, but
Mhm.
it's a symptom of a belief, right?
It's an
So,
evidence of
yes.
your subconscious creation.
Exactly. So what you believe is what has created this. So you have to believe differently before you can create differently. And so it's a backwards type of situation. We're
It
used to
is.
seeing the, you know what I mean? And that's why I think that it's hard for people sometimes when you try to talk about manifestation, especially in these terms about your thoughts. And people get very nervous about having negative thoughts, but it's not about that. It's about choosing once you notice that you're picking a thought that doesn't serve you, just pick a different one. There's no need to be scared. There's no need to bring fear into it, you know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
know that the outside is not the truth.
No,
It's
it is
just
not.
what's there based on what you were thinking in the past.
It's the effect, it's not the cause. And see, so many
Exactly.
people live their life reactively and think, well, this person did this to me today. So now I'm doing this. I'm acting this
Right.
way. I'm feeling this way. I'm reacting to a cause. No, 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 no. You're reacting to the effect of your cause, which you impressed upon the subconscious based on your feeling the day before. And we
Right.
often say, this day and then tomorrow is what you reap from what you've sown, but it's not just every day. Like it happens over time. Like you can
Mhm.
sow over a period of days, weeks, months, and even years. And in later writings, Neville actually talks about how to kind of undo things that you sowed a week ago that you're now hip to your own jive and you want to
Mhm.
switch that around and change it. There's a way to actually uncreate that. But everything you're experiencing today and every aggravation that you experienced at your job or at the supermarket, that was created yesterday when you felt some type of way about another different thing. And then you went to bed, not intentional. And good morning, here we are again,
Mhm.
having the same effects of the same type of cause.
Yep.
All right, moving on. Next, as in heaven, so on earth. Neville reframes this by saying, as in the subconscious, so on earth. Basically saying that the subconscious is our heaven. Whatever you have in consciousness as you go to sleep is the measure of your expression in the waking 2/3 of your life on earth, which is what we've just discussed. Nothing stops you from realizing your objective except your failure to feel that you are already that which you wish to be, or that you are already in possession of the thing sought. Your subconscious gives form to your desires only when you feel your wish fulfilled. So I broke this up into 3 different parts. First, he says, as in heaven, so on earth, as in the subconscious, so on earth. The subconscious is the creative, godlike, or animating force within us that outpictures our reality. The subconscious is heaven. Our creative manifestation is the earth. It is our day-to-day life. He also says, whatever you have in consciousness as you go to sleep is the measure of your expression in the waking 2/3 of your life on earth. I underlined this so many times because this is so important. Whatever you're thinking and feeling right before you go to bed impresses upon your creative subconscious, and she immediately sets out to create it for you, no questions asked. You could have had, Elenique, the best possible day, but something aggravated. Maybe you watched The Real Housewives of Dubai. Something aggravated you right before you went to sleep. And the feeling that's in your body is anger or aggravation about that. You are not going to be manifesting necessarily based on all of those good things that happen. You're going to be manifesting right before you open the portal, the
Mhm.
stargate that exists inside
Yeah.
of you. You're going to be manifesting based on the Real Housewives of Dubai. So you got to understand that.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, most definitely. And I think that that's something that we take very seriously. That's why we're putting together, and we're just going to drop this wonderful information that we're creating an ebook, because we started doing this and we were like, you know what? We got to give people the techniques, like a
Yes.
little cheat sheet, because people many times don't understand the critical importance of what they do before they go to bed. Like you said,
Mhm.
some people are like, oh, I can't fall asleep. I'll watch some reality TV, which is sometimes the most dysfunctional things that you could ever watch because they're easy. But
Mhm.
that's what you're setting yourself up right before your manifestation time.
Right.
So definitely want to create rituals and habits that support you creating the kind of day you want tomorrow. And that happens right before you go to bed.
Absolutely. And think of it like in a relationship sense. You know, your husband wants to make love with you, and wham bam, he can be ready in 10 seconds. But for a woman, you need to work up to that. You need to maybe call her during the day, tell her you're thinking about her. Maybe you want to bring her home a flower or a card or some candy. You want to massage her. There's a process that you want to warm up the woman to get her really ready to go so that you guys can go to bed and have a good time. It's kind of the same thing with the subconscious. You want to warm her up. And the way that you do that is by being mindful and intentional about
Mhm.
how you're feeling within yourself, especially right before you go to sleep.
Absolutely.
It
And
is
I think that's
incredibly
true for
important.
the woman, or the anyone who identifies more with that feminine aspect of themselves, right? Some people are much more in touch with that feminine part of themselves and allow themselves to be more influenced by the mood and the buildup. And I think the subconscious mind most definitely is not low maintenance in that
Mm-mm.
regard. It
No.
really cares about what are you doing
Hmm.
before you come visit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. The last thing on that particular quote that I highlighted, again, he says, nothing stops you from realizing your objective or like getting what you want, except your failure to feel that you are already that which you wish to be, or that you already are in possession of the thing sought. Your subconscious gives form to your desires only when you feel your wishes fulfilled. This is obviously self explanatory. And because sleep is the most proximate and magnetic brain state, like right before you falling into sleep, to the subconscious, it behooves us to become feelingly intentional when meditating or priming ourselves before falling asleep. I thought we would maybe kick it over to you because I know there was, and this is where the section that you had highlighted and looked into
Yes.
exists. So why don't you go over some of the things that you were thinking?
Sure. Um, well, for me, I highlighted the following paragraphs. The unconsciousness of sleep is the normal state of the subconscious. So the subconscious is unconsciousness. Because all things come from within yourself, and your conception of yourself determines that which comes. You should always feel the wish fulfilled before you drop off to sleep. So this is an interesting sentence, because all things come from within yourself. There is nothing outside of you. So
Hmm.
all things come from within yourself, and your conception of yourself. So what you believe yourself to be is what determines what comes. So you see the catch 22, what you
Yep.
believe happens, and what you happens reaffirms what you believe, and so you can get caught in that loop. And then he says, you never draw out of the deep of yourself that which you want. You always draw that which you are. and you are that which you feel yourself to be.
You have to
As
read that again. Oh, sorry.
no worries.
It's so important. Go ahead.
You never draw out of the deep of yourself that which you want. You always draw that which you are, and you are that which you feel yourself to be, as well as that which you feel as true of others. And this is a very powerful thing because what you believe about others affects you and what shows up for you. So people say, well, I'm a good human being and I don't know why everybody out there is so, um, violent or why people can't be honest or why people can't be this or that. Well, people keep showing up for you that way because that's what you expect to see. That's the belief that you hold within yourself. And so nothing else can come except what you expect. So it's very crazy because it's not only how we perceive ourselves, but it's how we perceive others, countries, nations, situations. I mean, the world that we're living in right now is a combination of all of these beliefs that we all hold about one another and about the
Yes.
world.
Yes.
Yeah,
This reminds me of a little story. Can I just tell it for
absolutely.
It's just an example of how magical I think life actually is and how important it is to stay in the belief that life is magical. It was several years ago, and I had like a really great year. And we did our taxes and we discovered, oh, we owe a lot of money. We owe a lot of money. And I remember getting the news, and normally it would throw me into kind of a panic, because I have like all my scripts and my archetypes that exist inside of me around poverty and lack and things of that nature. But I don't know. I just had and held a really good feeling of everything's going to work out to my benefit. Everything's going to be just fine and even better than that. It's just how I naturally felt about it. And I think we owed, I don't know, many thousands of dollars. But it was the year that Volkswagen, I guess they were caught falsifying their emissions data. I don't know if you remember
I
this. This is a
remember,
few years
yeah.
ago. And so anyone who had a Volkswagen ultimately was able to return it for like full price and get the money back. And we were already kind of ready to get a different vehicle. We happened to have a Volkswagen. And so we took it back, and the amount that we got for that Volkswagen was the amount that we owed in taxes that year, and even a little bit more as well. And so we were able to pay our taxes, and we were able to get another vehicle. We were able to do all the things. But in my mind, I'm like, oh God, the universe orchestrated the Volkswagen crisis so that
Just
I
for
could
you.
just for me. But I mean, I feel like that's the world that I live in, though, that everything works for the benefit. There's a scripture that says all things work for the good of those who love God. And I just feel that that's the universe that I live in. And when I feel that way, guess what? That's the world and the universe in which I live. It's always got my back. So I just wanted to
Absolutely.
share,
No, it's so
share
true.
that little story.
It's amazing. No, and isn't that the way it is? You
Yes.
expected it, so you got it. And
Yep.
then, one time I took a picture. I remember I was driving my car and I saw this most incredible rainbow. And I felt like that rainbow was just for me. But then I heard in my head, sometimes things are for you, just for you, and for everybody else all at the same time.
Yes.
And so I remember I posted that picture because I was like, this rainbow is absolutely just for me. And yet at the same time, it's for everybody else who needs it. Right. So
Yes.
it's this beautiful thing. And because we are so structured with this idea of limitation, we can't imagine of a consciousness that could orchestrate something that could be personal and collective all at the same time. But it does it all the time.
All the time. All the
Yeah.
time. And we'll do it more, especially when you get intentional and call it into being by impressing your subconscious.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the next paragraph that I chose follows that paragraph we just read. To be realized, then, the wish must be resolved into the feeling of being or having or witnessing the state sought. And I want to stop right there because it gives you three ways to get it done. You can either feel it as you already being that, or having it. So it's either something that you wish to be, something that you wish to have, or the capacity to witness that state. So if you can't get to the first two, simply be a witness to the state that you want. Very powerful.
I never noticed that in this whole
Are you
book, a
serious?
million times having read it. Yes. So, can you give an example of how I might witness it in order to
So,
create it?
so let's imagine that I'll tell you something with me. Like I've always been with my health and trying to imagine just being fully healthy all the time, energetic. But ever since I was a little child, I had asthma. I had, issues with my body. So I never felt that feeling of full and total health. And so when I would try to imagine that as I did my visualizations, I always struggled. I was like, I don't know what that feels like in me to be fully healthy. I don't know what it feels like to have that either. But I could imagine witnessing some future version of myself that did have that. So I would witness a girl like me, that is me, but a future me. And she's running and she's exercising and she's sleeping and she has no pain and she's just feeling amazing. And that witnessing allowed me to have the feeling. So when something's too hard to imagine, to experience within yourself, you imagine it like it's a movie happening to some other version of you, the one that is existing already in some parallel reality, enjoying all those things. And just by witnessing that, we're already attracting the signature. So that's an example for me, for how I've used it in my life.
Wow. I wonder if it applies to witnessing it happening in someone else's life and in a way that is not like jealousy or envy, but witnessing it and like putting yourself into through the imagination, putting yourself into the place of that, like if that's one way to get there too.
Well, we do that, right? We do that even in the regular world when we have mentors, right? And people we
Yes.
look up to. Well, isn't that what like musicians do that with the musicians? They look, they imagine themselves or they want to emulate that person. And so we attract that energy. But how much more powerful if you can take that feeling, which you can utilize if you really can't relate it back to you because it's just too disconnected from your life experience, pick someone, like you said, that does remind you of that. And then imagine what their life is like. And then see if at the end you can't just imagine some other version of you that
Mhm.
exists in a different dimension that's having that life and how good that version of you must feel. Right?
What a juicy tool.
I
That's a good
know.
tool.
I like it.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for shedding some light on that.
No worries. So the sentence reads then, the feeling which comes in response to the question, how would I feel were my wish realized? Is the feeling which should monopolize and immobilize your attention as you relax into sleep. So there's your instruction, everybody. That's how do I do it? You ask yourself, how would I feel if my wish were realized? If you can't exactly know how it feels, witness it through some means that you have. And then allow yourself to be monopolized and immobilized. In other words, completely absorbed by that feeling right as you relax into sleep. And you
Mm.
must be in the consciousness of being or having that which you want to be or to have before you drop off into sleep. So we need to have that so clear, but right before bed. And once asleep, and this really freaked me out the first time I read it, once asleep, man has no freedom of choice. His entire slumber is dominated by his last waking concept of self. So think about how important it is
Hmm.
because it's almost like you're saying, okay, this plane's getting ready for takeoff and we're just hoping there's enough gasoline, and pressurized cabin because once it takes off, we can't go make corrections or refuel like we've taken off. So it follows, therefore, that he should always assume the feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction before he retires and sleep. Come before me with singing and thanksgiving. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise.
I love that. I
Right?
love it. It speaks to my little biblical heart there. And I
Yes.
think that this is also a hint from Neville about gratitude and how gratitude is so magnetic in terms of manifestation. Like if if you can't get to some other, some specific feelings that you want to outpicture, that represent what you want to outpicture, get to gratitude and enter into his courts with praise. Praise to me just means I'm celebrating. I'm just celebrating God. I'm celebrating my connection to God. I'm celebrating this beautiful life. Like, get into the space of gratitude and the celebration of self, and that's sufficient to tip over into the subconscious, into sleep, and start manifesting for tomorrow. Beautiful.
Absolutely. And he then says, your mood prior to sleep defines your state of consciousness as you enter into the presence of your everlasting lover, the subconscious. So to begin to think of that subconscious as that lover, that person that adores you, that wants to give you everything, doesn't judge you, is fully on your team. And to go to bed imagining that that's who you're going to meet and where you're going to create. I mean, what a beautiful imagery, right? To take into sleep.
Yes.
And so he says, she sees you exactly as you feel yourself to be. If, as you prepare for sleep, you assume and maintain the consciousness of success by feeling, I am successful, you must be successful. Lie flat on your back with your head on a level with your body. Feel as you would were you in possession of your wish, and quietly relax into unconsciousness. I just find these 3 paragraphs, it's just unbelievable to me because it's so simple, right? That's the beautiful part about it. It's not complicated. We make it complicated,
We
you
do.
know,
Yeah.
but it's really not. And at the last thing he says, he that keepeth Israel shall never slumber nor sleep. Nevertheless, he giveth his beloved sleep. The subconscious never sleeps. Sleep is the door through which the conscious waking mind passes to be creatively joined with the subconscious. Sleep conceals the creative act, while the objective world reveals it. In sleep, man impresses the subconscious with his conception of himself. I mean, I can't, this is so amazing. This line that he says, sleep conceals the creative act and the objective world reveals it, right? So it's like you're hiding it in there in the unmanifest, but it's in there growing like a baby, you know, in a womb. And then when the baby comes out into the outside world, you're like, oh, this is what was made in the womb. And that's all of life.
All of it. Everything you're experiencing in your waking 2/3 of your life, which is just when you're awake and walking around the planet, is because of what was created by the subconscious while you slept. And
Exactly.
this idea, you know, like with my husband, for example, and I know you're married, you have a beautiful husband, like I actually am able to see all that he can be. And where he feels a limitation of self, or he feels like a failure in something that he's done, I can see how he can win. I can see him as successful. Like I can dream a dream for my husband. But see, the subconscious in this example doesn't do that. She
No.
just ever receives you as you feel yourself to be. She never judges that, thank you. But she always takes that as the activation for creation. So I guess you could say that's a limitation, because wouldn't it be great if our subconscious had our highest vision of self embedded within her and only ever created from that? But that takes away our personal responsibility as the creators of our lives. And that is what we came here to do. We came here in the image of our Father who created us, who is the creator, big C. And we came into this life to be creator, little c. And so we have to be responsible for what we create. We have to take accountability for the things that we are experiencing in our life. Our subconscious cannot do all the work. Then it's not fun for the soul, I don't think. Then it's just like, oh, you know, this is another dimension, another planet, Garden of Eden where everything's awesome. That gets boring. I think as a soul, we came here to learn about our miraculous nature and then to employ it. Engage, number
Absolutely.
one. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, well. So I'm going to pick up where you just left off in the book.
Love it.
So it follows. Wait, I think this is actually, I underlined the come into your courts with thanksgiving and praise because I just love that so much.
Oh, yeah.
And it reminds me of a technique that Neville taught, which is Isn't it wonderful? And so, because hypnagogia, again, it's going to take some time, I think, to really master that 5 minute period of time right before you fall asleep and like get a lot of work done. Even that feels and sounds hard. And when it's hard, now you're breaking the connection. Like, so it's such a fine dance that you do while you're in hypnagogia, but you can simplify it. And Neville Goddard said, just say to yourself within, and so you don't have to say it out loud, which will break your trance. Say it within, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it lovely? And then bring up in the feeling, in an embodied way, the feeling of wonderful. You don't even have to specify what wonderful is. Wonderful's $1 million. Wonderful's my new husband. Wonderful's 4 children. Like, that gets complicated and is very human. Instead, keep it really simple and just rely on, isn't it wonderful? Oh, isn't it lovely? And feel that to the best of your ability, and then trip into the subconscious, go to sleep feeling that, and your subconscious, who is connected to the all that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is connected to the all that is, will then create wonderful for you. And that is often better than you can imagine for yourself.
Yes.
Because you imagine based on what you've experienced, what you see other people have and do. The subconscious is open to the world of wonder. So if you just give her lovely and wonderful and feel that and then fall asleep, ooh, that just opens you up to God being new every morning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To trust that God can dream a bigger dream for you than the one that you can dream for yourself. And a lot of times that's about that surrendering, right? That we talk about. That is
Yes.
really, to me, the secret ingredient of manifestation.
Yes.
And that surrender to say, I will imagine these things that I think will make me happy. But also, if you can dream a bigger dream, if you can have a bigger vision for me, the unconscious, God conscious, super conscious, then I accept that, because I know that
I prefer that.
Yes, I invite it.
Right.
I like it. Right. And so I think that when we're able to do that, life just starts to flow in the most miraculous way. And really, that's why we call this the Miraculous Thinking podcast, right? Because we've discovered this over time, that it's when you surrender that you actually gain control.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, absolutely. And that's the concept. That's, I think, the universal law of thy will be done. We think of Jesus saying, thy will be done, like, please, if I could just not be crucified tomorrow, take this cup from me. I'm not into it, but thy will be done. Like a capitulation to, the divine plan. But it's also the other side of that, like, thy will be done. Yes, I can imagine all of these great things for myself using the limited construct of my human mind, but thy will be done. Like, what else is possible? Like, how can it get even better than this, God? Show me, demonstrate that to me. I'm open to that. So,
and I'm sorry, now that you mentioned this Jesus and the cross and thy will be done, something that I always find very curious is that people stop the story at the crucifixion, right? So those words were harbingers to me of when he would come back. When he would come back from the dead and show the point of the crucifixion is that Jesus rose
resurrection
again,
yes.
Right? The resurrection is the point. The crucifixion was the opportunity to show that life is eternal. So the fact that people think thy will, to me, thy will be done, is what comes after. The proof that life goes on and that we are miraculous beings of light, So it's sad that it got cut off and used for fear, honestly, utilized to create a sense of fear in people, like God is judging them or God wants you to suffer. God does not want anyone to suffer.
Yeah, or the focus on the passion, the passion of the Christ. It's the road that he had to walk and all the terrible things that Christ had to endure, which of course are terrible.
Yes.
But that's not why he did it. Like, he knew that would come, but he did it for a reason that exists beyond that. He took the transit from the human flesh and this earthly condition all the way into deification and godhood because of the crucifixion. So
yes.
Well, Neville takes us back into the Bible. Since we're here, we might as well stay here for a second.
For a little while.
He talks about the Song of Solomon, which I think No, obviously it's Solomon. Solomon, son of David. Okay, I was going to say it was written by, well, duh, it's Solomon. Okay. Okay, big brain Crystal. Anyway, quote, what more beautiful description of this romance of the conscious and subconscious is there than that told in the Song of Solomon? Quote, by night on my bed, I sought him whom my soul loveth. I found him whom my soul loveth. I held him and I did not let him go until I had brought him into my mother's house and into the chamber of her that conceived me. So the first level of this biblical scripture is about the relationship between a man and a woman, lovers, and how they love themselves in their humanity. But the next layer, the esoteric meaning of this, is about the process of creation. The woman seeking out her lover is you. It's you as you are right now, you coming up with the ideas, you in this life right now that seeks to manifest something differently for yourself. The lover who she's seeking out is the conscious. Tell me your ideas. Tell me what affirmations you're holding true to yourself. Tell me what you want to manifest. Tell me what your vision is. And the mother's house in this scripture, or the chamber where I was conceived, that's the subconscious. That's the mama. That's the one who's gestating the baby that she's going to give birth to, which is your tomorrow, which I thought was just a lovely kind of description of how everything works. And it's a loving dance. The marriage between the man and the woman, and I think Neville does go on to talk a little bit about I think St. Paul in Ephesians, and how Paul regarded the husband as the head and the wife as subservient, but he saw the esoteric kind of relationship and how that functioned, and so I just thought that was really beautiful. Next, never go to sleep feeling discouraged or dissatisfied. And I think so many of us do that, especially if life is legitimately hard right now.
Yes.
But yes. It's gonna take discipline. It's going to take training yourself up, because it makes a difference. If you can train yourself up, even if life is hard and your day is hard, the last hour, set yourself up with rituals, set yourself up with meditations, as we're going to share with you, set yourself up to feel in a different way. That is the beginning of creating in a different way. So again, Neville says, never go to sleep feeling discouraged or dissatisfied. Never sleep in the consciousness of failure. Your subconscious, whose natural state is sleep, sees you as you believe yourself to be, or how you feel yourself to be. You only ever feel what you believe in the first place.
That's true.
And whether it be good, bad, or indifferent, the subconscious will faithfully embody your belief. As you feel, so do you impress her. And she, the perfect lover, gives form to these impressions and outpictures them as the children of her beloved.
And we all love our children, no matter good, bad, or indifferent. See, that's the thing, that mother will love her creation no matter what.
Yes.
So it will continue to create. It will continue to support that same vision until a new dream for that creation can be had.
Yes, and Neville says she creates it in the exact likeness.
That's it.
That's my second husband, because we had one child together, and if she doesn't look all over just like my ex-husband, she's just every single way, just the exact likeness of the father, but with the nature of the mother, right? So even in exactly the nature of me, exactly like me, but looks exactly like her father. But that's what the subconscious does.
Yeah.
In the exact image and likeness. Quote, disregard appearances and feel that things are as you wish them to be, for, quote, biblical here, he calleth things that are not seen as though they were, and the unseen becomes seen. He's quoting Romans chapter 4, verse 17. So what does it mean to call things that are unseen as though they were? That means that we are interacting with that which has not been created yet as if it has been. We are walking around feeling like it already is. We are speaking the language of it. I am already that. I'm talking to that which I'm creating. I'm lovingly expressing myself. I'm embodying it. Within myself, do I feel that I already am, even though it's not created yet? But that is the key to creating it in the end. And the unseen becomes seen by interacting with it while it's unseen. That's
Mm-hmm.
pretty heavy. What do you think about that?
I mean, I love that saying where attention goes, energy follows. It's something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And really this is we can talk about these ideas a lot in terms of metaphysics like we do, but just using simplistic physics that we know, even in your body, when you focus your attention on a part of your body, circulation goes there, the sensing of the brain starts to go and try to sense what's happening there, neural pathways are fortified. So it is putting that attention on the unseen, putting that dream where it is not there yet, and focusing on that versus what's out here,
The
going
world of the
within.
senses, the world of the
Yes.
senses, right?
And so I think that's really what we have to train, the
Yes.
willingness to believe that the creation is happening in here and not out there.
Well, Neville demonstrated this to himself first when he was a young man. He had a mentor named Abdullah, and he really wanted to go home to Barbados for Christmas, but he didn't have any money. He did not have resources and the wherewithal, but he really wanted to be with his family in the Barbados. And so Abdul told him, be in Barbados. You're in Barbados.
Mm-hmm.
And in everything that you do, and in everywhere you go, as you're looking at the streets of New York, imagine the streets of Barbados, like
Right.
in a feeling way, right? In a feeling way, that is where you are. And if you can do it and hold it, you will go to Barbados. And
Mm-hmm.
so Neville was like, well, I don't know about all that, but set about to try it. Like, what's he going to lose anyway? So every coffee shop he went into, he imagined it was a coffee shop in Barbados. He wore the clothes he would wear in Barbados, being he was in the image of that. And just in every single way, he felt to be in Barbados. And within a couple of weeks, his family sent him a check to purchase the flight and gave him extra money for all of his needs. And he was able to go home for Christmas. But that is pretty much what is required, though, is the ability, like, to develop and nurture the capacity to turn away from the world of senses, because you're in Manhattan. You're
Right.
in New York for real.
Right.
We're in this life. And
Yeah.
my bank account is what it is right now. And my
Mm-hmm.
health is what it is right now. But I have to be able to go to Barbados. I have to
Mm-hmm.
be able to feel the breeze in Manhattan in winter and feel like it's a warm Barbados breeze. If I can
Right.
do that, I'm going to go home for Christmas to Barbados.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Neville. What an amazing, amazing person. Okay, so I have some more. Do we still have time? Should we wrap it up? I don't want to just go too nuts
I,
here. What do
I
you
have
think?
no idea how long we've
I
been on. It just
think
we go down the wormhole.
we
Where
do
are
go
we?
down the wormhole. I'll pull a few more, and then we can try to wrap it up a little bit. Okay. To assume the feeling of satisfaction is to call conditions into being which will mirror satisfaction. Quote, signs follow, they do not precede. Proof that you are will follow the consciousness that you are. Okay? Proof
Mm-hmm.
that you are will only ever follow the consciousness that you are. It will never precede it. So many of us look for signs to begin something. Well, God gave me a
Mm-hmm.
sign, and now I know I've got to have this child, or God gave me, I feel like this is what I have to do. This is my sign. But that's really not, Neville says, that's really not how signs work. Signs follow the spark of creation. They are the evidence that you are operating the mechanics, the manifestation mechanics correctly. You get a
Yes.
sign after the subconscious receives the impression.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Absolutely.
Okay.
Agreed.
Agreed. Boom.
Agreed.
All right. Do not limit yourself to the past. And I think so many people have a problem with this. They just I don't even know that they want to do this, but they are trapped in the cycles and the pain of their past. And so Neville says, don't limit yourself to the past. Knowing that nothing is impossible to consciousness, begin to imagine states beyond the experiences of the past. Whatever the mind of man can imagine, man can realize. All objective or visible states were first subjective or invisible states, and you called them into visibility by assuming the feeling of their reality.
You have to feel it or it doesn't happen. You have to
Yes.
believe what you feel. So there's the two parts of it, right? You believe something, therefore you feel a certain way. It creates an emotion. And then the emotion fortifies the belief like a loop.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets externalized and you use it as proof. So you have
Yes.
a faulty proof that you started with the wrong first step and you keep using it to convince yourself of the logic of your beliefs.
Yes. And it's no surprise or coincidence that people who are limited by the experiences of their past or trapped in the pain of their past tend to have the same kind of experiences over and over again. You tend to meet another abuser after you get rid of this one, or tend to enter into another cycle of lack after you cleared that one. That is because you're creating based on a belief that you have or a feeling of yourself that you have. Nothing created in your outpictured reality came into being outside of what's existing inside of you.
And we have this idea, in Hinduism of the sanskaras, right? And all that means is mental impressions. And your sanskars are what create your karma. So your karma is the way of thinking to which you are tied. And because you think this way, it doesn't stop repeating because you expect it because you believe it and you believe it because you expect it and it just keeps going. And so in order to break that wheel, we have to break those mental impressions. We have to change the impressions that we hold in our minds, which is the subconscious.
Well,
Heal those ideas.
how can it's so, I think some people, I mean, I've been told, well, just forgive him. It's for you. It's not for them. I'm like, well, that'd be great if I knew how to actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a simple thing to say, but it's not easy to actually do.
I
And
think it's unkind as well. I think there's a difference between knowing that there's a way to heal something, but there's a knowledge also that people are where they are. And when you have pain or suffering or lack, it can be very upsetting to hear somebody say, well, this is your fault because you're having these negative thoughts.
or
And
get
so,
over it already.
yeah, just deal with it. That's in the past. Those are nice statements that help no one. So, what I always say is what I believe with Neville and with all manifestation work is to pick the next best feeling that you can take seriously. Sometimes you can't go from I'm, on like on some financial federal aid to imagining that I'm a millionaire. That's too big. But just maybe you could imagine next month, I'll get a job. Maybe that's your highest thing that you can conceive of. Well, go there. And the thing with this is, and it's hard to hear, but this is about surrendering. There is a part in this where you have to let go of your logic because it doesn't follow logic. This is the subconscious territory. We've just talked about how the conscious mind is visiting the subconscious, the world of imagination, of no rules, of no time, no space, no thing. So if you're going to come and want it to behave in linear fashion or in logical fashion, you're not going to get anywhere. If you want to create with your subconscious and transform your reality, you have to let go and believe this. Just believe it. Pick one thing you're not going to waver on, one that you can actually believe, and wait for that to come to fruition and know and build yourself from each little success to the next, success, from each better feeling to the next better feeling. I remember once when I was young, I remember I was very sad and I read a book. I was like really struggling with depression in my teens. And I read a book and the book said, anger is a healthier or better or higher emotion than sadness, because depression is anger turned inwards. So you're beating yourself up. So it's better to at least be letting it out and not beating yourself up. And I was like, okay, well, I can get angry. That
Right.
I can do. So I did. And I was angry for a while. And then after anger, I was like, okay, well, maybe after that, I'm just going to go to sad, or, but sometimes if you can't do it in 1 minute or one day, it's okay. Nobody's judging you. Just give yourself grace to climb this awakening at the speed that's right for you.
Mm. Yeah. Don't have like unrealistic expectations. To make it manageable, make it doable, make it
Yeah.
utilizable.
And gentle for yourself. There's so much already beating us down. If
I
you're going to
know.
beat yourself up because you don't manifest fast enough or because you did it wrong, really, that's just another way to limit yourself.
Right.
This is supposed to be the key,
Right.
not another way to punish yourself.
Yes. Lovely. The world cannot change until you change your conception of it. Bolded and underlined, and I'll say it again. Like everybody must hear it, because this world in this day and age, on this month of this year, is pretty crazy, Elenique. When you look outside, if you turn on the news, girl, woo, give me a cocktail. The
Don't do that.
world, don't do it.
Don't turn on the news.
Don't do it. The world cannot change until you change your conception of it. As within, so without. Nations, as well as people, are only what you believe them to be. Russians, as well as people, are only what you believe them to be. Ukrainians, as well as people, are only what you, Democrats, Republicans, are only what you believe them to be, no matter what the problem is, Neville says. No matter where the problem is, no matter whom it concerns, you have no one to change but yourself. And you have neither opponent nor helper in bringing about the change within yourself. So this is radical responsibility. Oh, it is so easy to just get tucked into my group on this side of the fence. You're in that group over there. And from the safety of my group, I can call you all kinds of names. I can judge you. I can do bad actions to you, because that's my conception of who it is that you are. And I can delude myself into thinking that that's true and that that's real and that there are bad people in the world, and that there's limitation, and that there's war, and that Republicans are bad or Democrats are bad or this race is bad, or, we do all of that. But we're really fighting with ourself. It's our inner conception of ourself. And there's no difference between me and you. There's no difference between us and them. That's the delusion of the third dimension. That's literally Maya. That's an illusion. It's a lie. We are all the same. And so how I feel about myself and how I feel about what's possible for myself is what's going to show up on the screen of my life with everybody else and in all things. And so if you don't like what you're seeing on Fox News at night, God, you're not watching Fox News. But if you don't like what you're seeing on Fox News at night, if you don't like what's happening in your world, then you have got to go inside and change some fundamental things about how you feel about yourself. Believe in the magical world, where the Volkswagen Corporation is going to give you multiple thousands of dollars just because the universe
commit
has
fraud just for you.
Thank you. 5 years previously, or whatever
Thank
it
you,
was.
Volkswagen executives.
All things work for the good of those who love God. I believe that to be true. And because I seek to align to my divinity, my I am that I am, I can see that also in other people. I have compassion and grace, and I can live in a beautiful world. But if I can't do that inside, I'm never going to have that outside.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Last one.
Okay.
Last one. Because I think this one is really, really wild. Okay.
Okay.
You never suggest to another the state which you desire to see him express. Instead, you convince yourself that he is already that which you desire him to be.
That's awesome.
So
I've seen that happen.
Speak
I've
on that,
seen that
please. Can
happen.
you speak on
Well,
that?
I mean, I feel like I had that also just in when you get married, when you get married and you have all these concepts of what a husband needs to be and what a wife needs to be, and exactly the way that person has to do that for you so that it matches this concept that you have. And over time, I realized that that was actually a very detrimental thing because no one can meet whatever strange expectation you have because they're an independent, free person in the universe, right? So, why am I holding you hostage to the small vision that I can hold for you? And when I started just only focusing, and I worked with many women in relationship coaching with the husbands that I'm telling you, within 2 weeks, people that were about to get divorced, they're like going on honeymoon, like second honeymoons, and they're writing to me, "Oh my God, these sessions changed my life." The only thing I told them to do was write a list where you only write down what you like. I want you to look whether if even if you hate the guy, if he's at least super clean and he takes a good shower and he smells good in the morning, I want you to write down clean and smells good. Right? If he calls you or if he brought the groceries from the supermarket, which he doesn't have to do, he doesn't have to do that. People don't owe us anything. He did it. So, oh, he brought food from the supermarket. He's a good provider. And when they started focusing on what was there as opposed to what wasn't there, and when they started complimenting their husbands on what was there, the husbands had to change because in an equation, if you have A plus B equals C and you change A, you cannot get C anymore. It's physically impossible. If A becomes D, you have to have a different sum. So the second person cannot continue to show up for you the same way when you don't expect them to. When I hold this vision of you as wonderful and positive and full of light and full of potential, you can't but want to fulfill that. You feel it energetically. So I've seen this. I see it in my relationship. I've seen it in all these relationships that I've worked with women on and with the husbands too, because it's a two-way street, right? We
Mm-hmm.
can only continue to grow. But I've seen this in action so many times that I know it to be a fact.
Yes.
And even when the relationship couldn't be saved, at least the people left as friends,
Mm-hmm.
still now being able to come from a place of love about the separation, because it's not always that you're meant to stay together. Things run their course, but at least there was love and appreciation and a healthy letting go
Right.
instead of all that other negativity that can come when relationships end.
Well, isn't it a Buddhist principle that expectation is the root of all suffering? Like my expectations for everybody else, for myself, for my money, for my health. That's when I have an expectation and then it's not met, that's when I suffer. But what would
Yeah.
life be like if I didn't have the expectation and I was just present in what is and
Well,
joyful in what
attachment, right?
is?
You're attached. You're attached to your story. Here we go
Right.
back to the story.
Right.
And the story is created from a million things that you couldn't control. So my thing is, if I couldn't control my family of origin, I can't control my religion that I got in, raised in. I can't control the society that I'm in. Then I'm having a story that I didn't author. I didn't write this story. And now I'm a conscious infinite being and I see what's good in that story because there are parts that are good. I say, I'll keep it. But the parts that I don't like, that I never agreed to, I will correct and I'll create what I want.
Yes. But I think this passage is kind of giving us a glimpse into even more that is possible. So let me read it again. You
Mm-hmm.
never suggest to another, to somebody else, the state which you desire to see him express, the thing you want him to do, the
Mm-hmm.
thing you want him to be. You never suggest it to them directly. Instead, you convince yourself that he is already that which you desire him to be.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, personally, that I can actually change the circumstance and condition of another person if I actively imagine them to be in a different state. I think that's what magic is. It's also backed up a little bit biblically. I pulled a couple of scriptures. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it and it's yours. And also, and the prayer of faith will save the one who is sick, and the Lord will raise him up. And if he has committed sins, he will be forgiven. The prayer of a righteous person has great power as it is working. James 5:14. And so what I am suggesting is that I can intercede in a powerful and evidential way for someone else who's in a compromised state. For example, a lot of us out here, we have children, and our children aren't necessarily making the right choices. I've known mothers who've had children who were addicts or children who were in desperate situations and they just couldn't reach them. There's no amount of lecturing, there's no amount of talking. I can send them money, but he's just going to buy more drugs. Like, how can I actually help him? Well, what Neville, I think, is suggesting is not just inner work for ourself and our own concept of self, but we can actually imagine our loved ones and also all kinds of people in states of healing and wholeness and prosperity and passion and purpose. Like, I can sit in a 1 hour meditation and just imagine my daughter thriving and so happy. She has so many friends around her. She's so healthy. She's juicing. She's eating all of her greens, just like her mommy wants her to, but she's also in a loving relationship. Like, I can spend time in that hypnagogic state, which Goddard calls the state akin to sleep, imagining my child in this way. And I believe that opens some kind of a portal, because I do believe it's possible. And I'm a righteous person having this prayer. I believe that I open up the potential for my child to change. Now, what about my child's free will? That's a good question, because I don't think you can impose healing 100% on somebody. I don't think you can impose a different way of thinking 100% on somebody. But I think in doing this, entering the imaginal chamber and envisioning a different outcome for somebody that I love sends them infinite possibilities to change their condition, infinite synchronicities, patterns, people that they happen to meet in their day that can change their life. The more that I imagine and see themselves as I seek for them to be, and to my way of thinking, Elenique, that means I'm not going to be super specific, because I'm a mom and I'm going to want her to be all these things, but I really just want her to be happy and healthy and whole. If I intercede on her behalf, I believe she'll receive it.
Well, I believe that as well. I think of it in a little bit, maybe different terms in terms of what I think is happening. So, what I imagine is, or what I feel is true, everyone that exists in our lives only exists within us. They don't
Yes.
actually exist out there, they exist within us. And so, when I hold a vision for someone, I am actually holding the vision that I'm creating of them within me. So, there's these infinite versions of them. They are not real. They are just versions of this soul expressing. And in a way, I think what you do with prayer when it manifests in the physical world is essentially you've taken a person and moved them out of one timeline and put them into another
Mm-hmm.
timeline. You've
Mm-hmm.
selected that highest version of them and allowed that version to show up here, or the highest version that you can hold. And that's why I like to always keep it very open ended when I ask for people, because I do want to honor that person that exists within me, but outside of me, but at the end is all in one consciousness, right? Which is God, in the mind of God, is I want happiness. I want abundance. I want peace. I want expansion. I want these very big and open things, and I want them to color in that book however they want to do it. Because my dreams, like we've talked about today, are always small compared to God's, right? So I don't want to even limit them. And sometimes the difficult things that people go through are the biggest gifts.
Yes.
And we don't want to push them out of that. We want them to reap what they need to take from whatever that experience is. But most definitely, I believe prayer to be the biggest gift that we can give anybody else is to pray for someone, because we're adding energy to that vision of something really great happening for them. I pray for people all the time when I'm driving. Like if
Mm-hmm.
I'm driving and I see somebody, I'm like, that lady looks tired. God bless you. I hope you get home fast. If you see somebody in the mall and they have a limp, I'm like, I hope your limp goes away. God bless you. I'm sending light and healing to every cell of your body. Anything and anyone that I can bless, I do, as I'm going through my day, because I'm blessing me.
Yes.
And that's what I think we forget is there is no out there. It's all in here.
Yeah. Taking us back to the illusion.
Yeah.
Maya, of separateness.
Exactly.
But I do want to just say that, I mean, I think you can impress. I'm not advocating for it, okay?
No.
But
Yeah.
I think that you can impress your imaginal will upon others. I mean, Aleister Crowley, also called the
Hmm.
Beast, big time magician,
Yeah.
tells many stories of him through the impression of his mind, through the will of his mind, causing people to do what he wanted them to do. And
Hmm.
I've actually been in the presence of someone who can do that, made me do things and I wasn't conscious to it. He made me do things that I didn't know he was impressing upon me. So that is the power, though. That is the
Oh,
power
yeah.
of the, of course, as spiritual people, I want to always have the caveat or the compliments of thy will be done, because, and I agree 100%, open-ended, like just joy, happiness, open-ended, you fill in the rest, and
Right.
subconscious, thy will be done. But it is possible.
Oh, it
It
is.
is
Yeah.
truly possible. I mean, I fell into a period of conflict with my child. I don't know, what was it, 2, 3 years, 4 years ago, something. It was a really horrible time. And I could have spent those months, because it ended up being a protracted, no contact kind of a situation. I could have spent that entire time being very reactive and upset and, oh, woe is me, self-flagellation, and just very angry and all of the things that we can do. But instead, I spent a lot of time meditating about her joy,
Hmm.
meditating about me just hugging her and her hugging me. Very simple, simple visualizations
Beautiful.
charged with my love. And
Hmm.
I believe through that accelerated our reconciliation. And now, of course, we're better than ever. But this kind of stuff really works.
It does. It's love bombs. I mean, there's nothing stronger, right? And you cannot resist it. You can't resist it. It will win. Love never fails. I love that from the Bible.
Yes.
Love never fails. And we sometimes think it fails because we're judging it on human time and we're limiting, like, when does love show up, or we want a specific effect, but you cannot know what happens through all space and time. You don't know where that love begins or where it ends or what it changes. So you just have to continue to recommit to love, commit to love with everyone, with everything. And then things just flow. Maybe not in the way you thought, but definitely for the greatest good. I do believe that.
I do as well. And that's the beauty, I think, of this book,
Yeah.
because it really shows you how you can actually do it. And it can be as ornate and sophisticated as like your biggest dream and what that will look like and what you'll be
Hmm.
doing, what you'll be wearing, where you'll be going. And it can be as simple as, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it
Yes.
wonderful? In order for you to start creating something different for yourself. And again, in this chapter, the emphasis was on the doorway into the subconscious, the one that we all walk through every single day, which is the doorway of sleep, and being mindful of that last feeling we have of ourself before dropping off into
Hmm.
sleep, because that is what we are going to be creating based upon. Now, next week, Neville's going to take us into another state akin to sleep. It's not sleep, but it's
Hmm.
like it. And this is the state of prayer. And I think based on how he's going to be describing it for us, we're going to be really feeling it as a meditation or an
Yes.
active type of meditation and prayer, which we will talk all about next week
Absolutely.
for sure. So, do you have any final takeaways or thoughts about this chapter and about what we're getting into with this book?
Well, I would love to add a little short meditation for people to utilize because I think it's so powerful. I really think that what we've talked about today is transformational. I mean, if you can really trust this and utilize it, your life will change. Your life outside and your life within. So, if that's okay, I'd like to lead them through a little hypnotic,
Sure.
and
Well,
we'll put that.
do you want to
Do you
do
want us
it?
to stop? Yeah, we can do it
I'm
separate.
trying to think. Okay, how about this? So, why don't we wrap up the content
Yes.
part
Okay.
now, and
Okay.
then as soon as we're done with that, we will enter into the meditation, and then we will
Do that.
upload that separately. So,
Okay.
if you're listening to this podcast episode and you've gone through the whole chapter with us, make sure you go back to your podcast platform and look for the meditation that accompanies this, which Elenique is going to take us through.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's one thing to talk all about it, but it's another thing to like allow it to embed and to integrate, like so that we can practically use it, which is what the meditations I think are so good for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No more theory, practice.
No, that's exactly right. Well, everyone, we've had a wonderful time. I hope I didn't talk too much. You know what I get
You're passionate about it,
I
and
get all crazy.
and that's the beautiful part about it, Miss Crystal.
Well, God is
You're here to,
good.
yeah,
God is
God is
good.
good.
And I want people to live in the presence of that. I really just want people to feel it and to hold it, because I think people feel it sporadically through their life,
Yes.
you know, or they'll enter into some vibrational state of high consciousness and they'll be like, oh wow, that's so awesome. And then poof, they're out of it again.
Yes.
They're back to doing this in the Real Housewives of Dubai. And we've lost that connection. So to me, it's about living in a sustained, to the best of your ability, a sustained state of awareness of all that is. And I get excited talking about people realizing just how powerful they are.
Agreed. And then it's really it's an honor to help anyone to realize their true nature, and to just be that bridge of remembering, you know, to be able to talk about these things is an honor, and to connect with this community is an honor, because we are all here for the same thing, just to wake up, right? Wake up and be joyful and rejoin the beauty that is God and the universe, and that oneness, that consciousness that unites and integrates all things, in which at the core is just love. So if we can just step into the love, be the love, and everything else just flows.